Can you give us a couple of issues which you think you could realistically, in a congressional setting, work across the aisle, say with somebody like your opponent in this race?
Sure. Well, I can't speak to my opponent in this case, but one of the things that is now getting bipartisan support, and I would strongly work on, is not enabling members of Congress to trade stocks. You shouldn't, it's like in a sports analogy, you shouldn't be able to be the ref and be able to bet on a game and to be able to take money from a team. That's where we're at right now, because Congress also creates laws that regulates industry. So I strongly support and would be immediately sign on to the ban on members of Congress being able to trade in stocks. My opponent, I don't know where she stands on that issue. I've raised it before in debates. She hasn't spoken to it. I know that as a multimillionaire, she's very interested in some of the protections around the wealthy, but that's a common sense issue. Another common sense issue is lowering prescription drug prices. So Congress took an important first step in the Inflation Reduction Act to look at just one, in insulin, to lowering the prescription drug prices by enabling Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. I think we should do that with all prescription drugs. Look, I'm a small business owner. You can absolutely make a profit, you can cover costs, but you can't price gouge. And we're seeing that right now. A perfect example is the EpiPen. If you're allergic and need an EpiPen, those things cost $5 to make. They cost about $600, and you got to replenish them every year and a half. I've spoken to too many parents whose kids need an EpiPen who just can't afford that.
Two interesting issues. Do you think you could, in both those cases, realistically work across the aisle with Republican counterparts?
Absolutely, because the vast majority of not just Oregonians, but Americans want to see their prescription drug prices lowered. Look, I don't take corporate PAC money, and we have both Republicans and Democrats who've been in the pocket of Big Pharma on this. So this is an issue where the voters, if the voters' voice are heard, we would do that immediately. So it'll take some longer term work, but that is an area where voters really want to see it happen. And again, that's across the political divide. And so part of that job is to build the relationships, make the point, get the word out to voters that that's an option, and build up that political pressure to help. As a Central Oregonian, I work across the aisle all the time on drought and wildfire issues. So this is something I've experienced doing.
Oh gosh, I think that's the most important thing that Americans and Oregonians have forgotten. It's how to talk to each other and make sure that we do work across the aisle. Education is one of those. I mean, that is the education that we saw, and the lack of education that we saw over the last 2 years in regards to the pandemic has really affected our young people. I would imagine that Republicans, Democrats, independents, and non-affiliateds care about this issue. I want to make sure that parents are always involved, and it really did not look to party line when we saw the full effects. And now we're going to be dealing with, how far behind our kids are, as well as addressing that mental health crisis that we're seeing amongst young people. They're not speaking, they're not talking. We've visited with a couple of speech pathologists and mental health counselors that are saying they're seeing the full effects of that lockdown. I'd like to make sure that we bring all parents on board to address the issue of education in order to not only fulfill our workforce, but to have healthy young individuals. I did it as mayor, made sure to have a Happy Valley Youth Council, and I want to continue down that road of remembering who our future is and what we're really fighting for. Maybe the other issue I would like to talk about is public safety. Again, you mentioned too, public safety is important to all. It's important to our businesses. It's important to our communities. It's important to our young people and students walking to schools. So again, this all it runs across all party lines. Public safety is the one thing that people expect for paying their tax dollar, and we have to make sure that we can be transparent with that and honor their public safety. I mean, for businesses and community members as a whole, it was important to me as mayor, and it will continue to be important to me as your next Congresswoman.